Morning, everybody. So I forgot to document any more of an interesting project again. I say interesting. It's interesting to me, and I never know what you guys actually are interested in seeing, but I just thought I'd do a little video and show you what I've been up to. So this distributor is out of a Farmall 460 forklift. So it's 460 tractor that I'm pretty sure some third-party company took and converted to a forklift. So my brother bought this thing, and it's been running pretty cruddy. And I ended up going and helping him tune it a bit, adjusting valves. I was going to set the timing. It seemed like it was a bit retarded. You could tell from the way it ran. And then I went and checked the point gap, and it was way out. And while I was playing with that, discovered all kinds of play in the top bushings in the distributor shaft. So that really screws with dwell and timing. But anyways, and then it had been making funny chirping noises. We discovered all this fine metal dust in there, and I concluded that the top bearing was dry and it was giving up the ghost. So being the hillbilly that I am, I dumped some gear oil in there and let it run down around the shaft, and that quieted it up. And we discussed it and said, we're going to have to do something with this. And then he ran it for a couple days. The distributor locked up and spun this thing so aggressively that it slipped under the clamps, thankfully, instead of shearing off the drive. Spun it, yanked all the spark plug wires out. You see here's a hunk of the coil wire still attached to it because it wrapped it around it and snapped the coil wire. So anyway, it was done. It turned out what had actually happened in there, something had exploded in the advance mechanism and just jacked it all up. So it's getting my favorite fix for old tractor engines because they can all use a little more oomph on the spark department. So what I did is I got on, let me see here. Here's the cap, just so everybody's got reference. So I got on the interweb and started hunting around. I like these HEI ignitions. I've done this to 2 tractor engines. In the past, I always used the big head style ones with the coil and the cap. But because this is fairly close to the side of the block, we didn't have room for that. So anyways, what I found, and I didn't know this existed before, but I should have, just makes sense, is because these HEIs are so popular, what this actually was an HEI-style distributor with a shaft and base setup that was designed to go in the Ford 6-cylinders, like the 306. So I bought it. The reason I got it instead of the Chevy one is its basic base and drive was the closest of the bunch to this. And then what we did, you can't tell it now, it was totally different on the bottom end here. I turned off all of the retaining collar and stuff. None of that was the right size. And then machined up an adapter that's a press fit on there. I loaded her up with Loctite, press fit that on that made the base dimensions the same as the original one. And then the shaft was longer by that much. And these are a hex drive to the oil pump. As you can see, this is a flat blade drive. It's actually the opposite. On this one, the oil pump is driving the distributor. On a factory Ford setup, the distributor drives the oil pump. Matter of fact, this was the drive gear. I took it and turned it off, used it to make sleeve, and I can show you. Got set up on the mill, cut a slot in the end of the shaft after shortening it to the right length. Anyways, we are preparing to do one final little thing to this. That's what I'm going to tell you about now. So the only issue with all of this is an oddball distributor that turns counterclockwise. So, and if I prove to be wrong, I'll come back and let you guys know that later on in an addendum to this video. But to the best of my knowledge, I do not believe that this inductive pickup cares which direction it's turning. It'll make a spike that triggers the ignition module, whether it's going forward or backwards. But the problem you've got is the advance mechanisms all work the wrong direction. So this turns clockwise, this turns counterclockwise. So what I've done is this distributor came with a vacuum advance blockout. That's that little black piece there. And then I've gutted the mechanical advance mechanism, and I'm getting ready to weld that solid. So the results of that is going to be that we have a static advance. There is no advance at all. I don't see that being an issue on this tractor engine. I don't know what top RPM it is. I think it's like 1800 RPM. And none of the older tractor engines even had advance in them. I mean, the old magneto ignitions like the Farmall H's, M's, none of those had advance. You just set them and ran them. And with this forklift engine, I'm sure that'll be just fine. We'll end up, what I will do is take it to full throttle, tune the timing by ear, and then shut it down. And the kind of rule of thumb is if they don't kick back when you crank them over against the starter, you're good to go. So that's the direction I'm headed with it. We'll see how she all works out, but we're getting close here. I just need to pull the shaft, tack weld the mechanical advance, and we're ready to slam her together and go try it. All right, this thing's ready to go. Before you guys start jumping me for doing dumb stuff, before I went and welded this, I looked at it again, and I realized, so this mechanical advance mechanism on these is controlled by, I'm sure all you Chevy guys are laughing to yourselves, you already knew this, but anyways, they got these little, I don't know what you call it, but spacers that go on this stud, and that controls the range of motion. There's different diameter ones that you can put in there. Controls the range of motion to give you varying degrees of dance. Well, I got looking at it and realized that if you pulled it apart and spun it around 180 degrees, they had a hole here that you just put it in that locks it up tight. So no welding necessary. Just took it apart, spun it around, good to go. But glad I saw that before I was stupid about it and welded it. But anyway, we're going to get the cap back on this thing now. I've got the drive coupling, as I guess I'd call it now, no longer drive gear, punched back on there, and we are ready to go put this thing in and see how she hums. Oh, by the way, I would just mention, so my experience has been doing this to old farm tractors, by the way. I've done this to well, it was another forklift, but it's a Farmall B that I put HEI on. That tractor was obnoxious, ornery, hard to start, constantly needing tinkering with the points. And I'm going to say about 20 years ago I did this to that tractor, and we have not touched the ignition system since then. And then more importantly, it was unbelievable what a difference it made in operation. Before it was always cold-blooded, now you hardly ever touch the choke. If it's above, I'd say about 50 degrees, you just fire it up and go to work. And I attribute that to what I do when I put these ignition systems on, which is to open the plug gap up. I think I set that one at 65 thousandths because now you got a, high tension ignition system. And my theory is that bigger, hotter spark just fires this garbage gasoline we're getting better. So, I mean, remember, gas now is all formulated for fuel injection, and these old tractors do not have very high-tech carburetors, so I doubt they atomize their fuel that well. So anyways, very good results out of that. And then the other engine I did is in a tractor, but it's not technically a tractor engine. So that's the old 1954 Cockshut 40 that my grandfather-in-law put that GM 305 V6 in. So, I mean, technically that's an automotive engine, but that's pretty big, high torque, low spinning. And same thing, just night and day difference on that one with a high-tension ignition system on it. So anyway, that's the whole point of this. We're upgrading and replacing, because this, I couldn't find one when I first went hunting, but the 4-cylinder equivalent of this was $300. I bought this and its coil for $200, spent a few hours modifying it, so we've got less cash out of pocket, and we'll definitely have a better ignition system. Alright, so here's the recipient of this operation, old International 460 utility that's a forklift. And we're in the process of getting stuff hooked up. I'm getting ready to, I've got this just rough timed, and then we got to get a ground wire connected yet. Got the new high voltage coil installed, and we got to get plug wires hooked up, but these are male on the cap versus female, so we got to get a different set of plug wires. But we're getting close to hopefully touching this thing off and being back operational. There she is, International 460 utility with Chevy HEI ignition installed.